Hello friends, I am Professor Smita Jha and I am here to discuss research methodology with the topic paradigm shift in research methodology and interdisciplinary approach. This is very important, deciding objective of research, because research paradigm shift of course indicates interdisciplinarity and what kind of objective you will select or decide for the research that maintains the entire research atmosphere. So, research objectives are clear and concise statements that outline what you aim to achieve through your study. They are the foundation for determining your research scope, guiding your data collection methods, and shaping your analysis. The purpose of research proposal and setting clear objectives in it is to ensure that your research efforts are focused and efficient, and to provide a roadmap that keeps your study aligned with its intended outcome. Research objectives are integral to the research framework as the nexus between the research problem, questions, and hypothesis. They translate the broad goals of your study into actionable steps, ensuring every aspect of your research is purposefully aligned towards addressing the research problem. This alignment helps in structuring the research design and methodology, ensuring that each component of the study is geared towards answering the core questions derived from the objectives. Creating such a difficult piece may take a lot of time. If you need it to be accurate yet fast delivered, consider getting professional research paper writing help. There are several software, several websites where you can go and you can learn how to make research objective and write research paper whenever the time comes. So, it also aids in the identification and justification of the research methods and tools used for data collection and analysis, aligning them with the objectives to enhance the validity and reliability of the findings. Furthermore, by setting clear objectives, researchers can more effectively evaluate the impact and significance of their work in contributing to existing knowledge. Additionally, research objectives guide literature review, enabling researchers to focus their examination on relevant studies and theoretical frameworks that directly inform their research goal. So, as I said, that there are several website link where you can gain this knowledge also besides this lecture of mine. Research is a creative and a strategic process that involves constantly assessing, reassessing, and making decisions about the best possible means of obtaining trustworthy information, carrying out appropriate analysis, and drawing credible conclusions. Research fixes the gap of informational need required to address a myriad of problems affecting all facets of human endeavors. It involves the collection, exploration, and reporting of information about people and society. Research involves searching for truth, gathering facts, analyzing data, and using data so gathered to solve substantial problems in the social world. This activity is akin to embarking on a journey with a clear-cut destination in mind, but which can only be made successful with a roadmap. This map is mostly conceived in research as the objectives of their study. It is made real through the qualitative thinking of a researcher. It represents those action, ingenuity, and dexterity often put together to make research doable and resourceful. It is these attributes that constitutes the focus of the research. In most cases, it is often the product of a researcher's concern generated through thinking that is mostly expressed at the objectives of their study. These objectives exemplify the searchlight upon which a researcher relies to get to or arrive at his/her destination. The components of thinking is what translates into the gamut of objectives often put forward by a myriad of researchers in diverse fields. Now, this is referred to as finding the focus or purpose of research. The purpose of any research is mostly depicted as the aim and the objectives of a study. Determining the research aim leads naturally to determining its objectives. In social research, these two concepts remain outstanding to the overall process and success of most research work. As the concept connate aim talks more about the direction of research efforts, while the objective indicates what the researcher intends to achieve and it defines the specific aims of the study. Research objectives are more specific than the aim and relate directly to the research question. AIM also announces and pens the need for the research. Correspondingly, the objective signifies the contributions that the research outcome will make to the resolution of several hitherto identified problems enunciated in the statement of the problem section of a research work or project. AIM analogically represents the brain of the researcher, while the objectives depict the body of flesh required to accomplish the intent of the research. It is the objective of the study that makes the overall research activity meaningful and worth striving for. It generates simplicity of the processes and helps research achieve its purpose. Research objective is also described as a statement of purpose in another sense. These statements of purpose indicate the focus and directions of the research and provide criteria for evaluation of the outcomes of the research. In the same vein, Creswell explains the purpose statement establishes the direction for the research. It is the most important statement in an entire research study. It helps in orienting the reader to the central intent of the study, and from it, all other aspects of research follow. Hence, it represents the focus of the research. The instinct behind the objective of any study is not remarkably different from the complete focus of most research work. As a matter of fact, human quest for growth or development often generates unanticipated consequences. These consequences are exemplified in dislocation that often cause the arousal of interest or attention of social researchers. The research objective in this regard tends to help the researcher define his or her scope of study, assist in projecting the variables that are most germane to the study, and offer clues on how best they can be measured. Give direction on the appropriate steps to follow in order to generate solutions to the problems under focus, provide a specific boundary to the coverage of the research, permit judicious use of research resources, and aid the avoidance of collecting irrelevant data that are not in tandem with research focus. Apart from the problem-based generated research objective, there are several other means through which a researcher can raise suitable objective to aid investigation. It was apt for Robson to identify several others which often dictate the pendulum of research efforts. Now, these include group-driven research objective in few cases. Research often lies in the group domain. This is what Robson described as making group decision. Whenever research coalesces a significant number of people, The objective of a study is collectively produced through the collation, analysis, and selection of the most appropriate option from the figment of ideas of the group members on certain topics for investigation. Here, individual members independently think about and write down their proposals for the research focus, and this process is followed by harmonization of idea. Pressure, interest-driven research objective, yet another type of objective. In many cases, researches are conducted under a specified area of interest, handed down by commissions or organization. In this regard, the researcher is expected to draw from the concern of the sponsor and make workable objectives to meet the requirements stipulated by the financiers of the project. Research is reduced to what Robson referred to as having the decision made for you. The main task of the researcher at this juncture is the translation of the topic of interest into something researchable and doable within the contrarious situation of time, resources, and finance at his disposal. Inward propelled objective of a study, being independent in developing or raising the subject matter of any research endeavor, automatically qualifies a researcher to think inward in the generation of the suitable objectives of their study. Significant research projects often conducted among educational institutions fall within this category. Students close to the expiration of their program in the university are expected to write a long essay or project which reflects their capacity to conduct research. The study's objective forms an important aspect of the individual's research. However, in the view of some researcher, this liberty should exclude the introduction of prejudice or bias like to be occasioned by the foreknowledge a researcher has on the particular study. In formulating the objective of their study in this wise, it is expected that a researcher gets themselves acquainted with the various developments in the area of interest to avail him, her the opportunity of getting to the appropriate objective needed to solve the problem under focus. Aligning objectives with research question and hypothesis. The harmony between what research objectives should be, questions, hypothesis is critical. Objectives define what you aim to achieve. Research questions specify what you seek to understand, and hypotheses predict the expected outcomes. The alignment ensures a coherent and focused research endeavor. Achieving it necessitates a thoughtful consideration of how each component interrelates, ensuring that the objectives are not only ambitious but also directly answerable through the research question and testable via hypothesis. The interconnected net facilitates a streamlined approach to the research process, enabling researchers to systematically address each aspect of their study in a logical sequence. Moreover, it enhances the clarity and precision of the research, making it easier for peers and stakeholders to grasp the study's direction and potential contributions. Role of research objective in various research phases. Throughout the research process, objectives guide your choices and strategies. From selecting the appropriate research design and methods to analyzing data and interpreting results. They are the criteria against which you measure the success of your study. In the initial stages, research objectives inform the selection of a topic, helping to narrow down a broad area of interest into a focused question that can be explored in depth. During the methodology phase, they dictate the type of data needed and the best methods for obtaining that data, ensuring that every step taken is purposeful and aligned with the study's goals. As the research progresses, objectives provide a framework for analyzing the collected data, guiding the researcher in identifying patterns, drawing conclusions, and making informed decisions. Now, we should know the various steps to formulate both general and specific research objectives. The first is understand the issue or gap in existing knowledge your study aims to address. Second, gain insights into how similar challenges have been approached to refine your objectives. Third, articulate the broad goal of research based on your understanding of the problem. Fourth, detail the specific aspects of your research, ensuring they are actionable and measurable. Now, the question is how to know when your objectives need refinement. Your objectives of research may require refinement if they lack clarity, feasibility, or alignment with the research problem. If you find yourself struggling to design experiments or methods that directly address your objectives, or if the objectives seem too broad or not directly related to your research question, it is likely time for refinement. Additionally, objectives in research proposal that do not facilitate a clear measurement of success indicate a need for a more precise definition. Refinement involves ensuring that each objective is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, enhancing your research's overall focus and impact. Defining research studies, objectives, and problem statement is not just a preliminary step, but a continuous guiding force throughout the research journey. These goals of research illuminate the path forward and ensure that every stride taken is meaningful and aligned with the ultimate goals of the inquiry. Whether through the meticulous application of their SMART criteria or their strategic alignment with research questions and hypotheses, the rigor in crafting and refining these objectives underscores the integrity and relevance of the research. As scholars ventures into the vast terrain of knowledge, the clarity and precision of their objective serve as beacons of light, steering their explorations towards discoveries and advanced academic discourse and resonate with the broader societal needs. Now, importance of research objectives you should know as a researcher. So, research objectives play a crucial role that is very, very important to know in research process and hold significant importance for several reasons. Now, the first point is guiding the research process. Research objectives provide a clear roadmap for the entire research process. They help researchers stay focused and on track, ensuring that their study remains purposeful and relevant. Second, defining the scope of their study. Research objectives help in determining the boundaries and the scope of their study. They clarify what aspects of the research topic will be explored and what will be excluded. Third, providing direction for data collection and analysis. Research objectives assist in identifying the type of data to be collected and the methods of data collection. Fourth, evaluating the success of their study. Research objectives serve as benchmark for evaluating the success and outcomes of the research. They provide measurable criteria against which the researcher can assess whether the objectives have been met or not. Fifth, enhancing communication and collaboration. Clearly defined research objectives facilitate effective communication and collaboration among researchers, advisors, and stakeholders. Now, there are certain common mistakes which can be avoided while writing research objectives. When writing research objective, it is important to be aware of common mistakes and pitfalls that can undermine the effectiveness and clarity of your objectives. Now, what are those? First, vague or ambiguous language. One of the key mistakes is using vague or ambiguous language that lacks specificity. Ensure that your research objectives are clearly and precisely stated, leaving no room for misinterpretation or confusion. Second, lack of measurability. Research objectives should be measurable, meaning that they should allow for the collection of data or evidence that can be quantified or observed. Avoid setting objectives that cannot be measured or assessed objectively. Third, lack of alignment with research questions or hypotheses. Your research objectives should directly align with the research questions or hypotheses you have formulated. Make sure there is a clear connection between them to maintain coherence in your study. Fourth, overgeneralization. Avoid writing research objectives that are too broad or encompass too many variables or phenomena. Overgeneralized objectives may lead to a lack of focus or feasibility in conducting the research. Fifth, unrealistic or unattainable objectives. Ensure that your research objectives are realistic and attainable within the available resources, time, and scope of your study. Setting unrealistic objectives may compromise the validity and reliability of your research. Now, the point is, when should I write a research objective? Very important point. Write your research objectives at the earliest stages of the research planning process. They should be developed before you begin designing your research study, writing questions, and choosing the user research methods. Writing research objectives early on helps to provide clarity and direction for your study, ensuring that your research activities align with the overall goals. As soon as you have the problem statement defined and know what you will need to find out with the research, you can start writing the research objectives. Again, the important point, how many research objectives one should write? A good rule of thumb is to stick to not one, rather 3 to 4 research objectives per study. But the number of research objectives you write can vary depending on the scope and complexity of your research study. However, we advise to have a limited number of focused and specific research objectives rather than an excessive amount. Now, what are the key considerations for writing research objective? The first, use action verbs. Start your objectives with verbs that clearly indicate what you will do, like investigate, determine, explore, assess, evaluate. Next is be specific. Avoid vague or ambiguous language. Make sure your objectives clearly state what you intend to study. Make them measurable. How will you know if you have achieved your objectives? Include quantifiable data or indicators. Then, ensure they are achievable. Your objective should be realistic given the resources, time, scope of your research. Make them relevant. Your objective should directly relate to broader research question or problem you are addressing. Now, set a time frame. Well, this is also important. If applicable, include a timeline for completing your objectives. Align with research goal. Ensure your objectives contribute to the overall goals of your research project. Conduct literature review. Review existing literature to identify key concepts, theories, and methods related to your research problem or question. Identify research gaps. Determine what is already known and what remains to be explored. Now, some objectives of research include access to new fact. Research can help discover new information. Scientific description. Research can help describe a phenomenon or group. Forecasting the future. Research can help predict future events. Providing solution to the problem. Research can help find logical solution to problem. Innovation and renewal. Research can help create new ideas and improve existing ones. Now, quantitative questions prove or disprove a researcher's hypothesis and are constructed to express the relationship between variables and whether this relationship is significant. Types of quantitative questions include descriptive questions, which are the most basic type of quantitative questions and seeks to explain the when, where, why, how something occurred. Comparative questions are helpful when studying groups with dependent variables where one variable is compared with another. Relationship-based questions try to answer whether or not one variable has an influence on another. These types of questions are generally used in experimental research question. What comes first? Research question or objective? Again, very important point. Designing a research hypothesis is supported by a good research question and will influence the type of research design for the study. Acting on the principles of appropriate hypothesis development, the study can then confidently proceed to the development of the research objective. Well, research question and research objective, if we say, then broad statement that guide the overall direction of the research. While research objective is specific, measurable goals that the research aims to achieve. Research questions identify the main problem or area of inquiry, while research objectives define the specific outcomes that the researcher is looking to achieve. Research questions helps to define the scope of the study, while research objectives helps to guide the research process. Research questions often used to generate hypotheses or identify gaps in existing knowledge. Research objective used to establish clear and achievable targets for the research. Research questions are not mutually exclusive with research objectives, while research objectives should be directly related to the research question. Why research question and objectives are not the same? Well, research questions are more general and open-ended, while objectives are specific and measurable. Research questions identify the main problem or area of inquiry, while objectives define the specific outcomes that the researcher is looking to achieve. Research questions help define the study's scope, while objectives help guide the research process. Research questions and objectives are not mutually exclusive, but well-defined research questions should lead to a specific objectives necessary to answer the question. On the other hand, research objectives are specific, measurable goals that the research aims to achieve. They are used to guide the research process and help to define the specific outcomes that the researcher is looking to achieve. For example, an objective for the research question might be to determine the correlation between social media uses and rates of depression in teenagers. This objective is more specific and measurable than the research question and helps define the specific outcomes that the researcher is looking to achieve. It is important to note that research questions and objectives are not mutually exclusive. A study can have one or several questions and objectives. A well-defined research question should lead to specific objectives necessary to answer the question. Thus, research question and objectives are two distinct aspects of the research process. Research questions are broad statements that guide the overall direction of the research, while research objectives are specific, measurable goals that the research aims to achieve. Understanding these two terms' differences is essential for conducting effective and meaningful research. A research problem is a broad issue that you would like to address through your research. It identifies a difficulty, doubt, or an area of concern. in theory or in practice that requires thought and investigation. Research objectives are clear statement of what you aim to achieve through your research. They are specific actions that you will take and act as milestone that will help you complete your research. A research question is the specific concern that you will answer through your research. It is derived from your research problem but is based on your study design. When you narrow down your research problem to a specific idea that points towards a feasible way to investigate or address your research problem, you get your research question. Thus, to frame your research questions, you will also need to have a clear idea of what you aim to achieve, that is objective, through the study. Therefore, research questions are based on the research problem and the research objective. The primary objective should be coupled with the hypothesis of the study. Study objectives define the specific aims of the study and should be clearly stated in the introduction of the research protocol. The previous example I quoted earlier, and using the investigative hypothesis that there is a difference in functional outcomes between computer assisted actibular component placement and freehand placement. A research hypothesis is a predictive statement about the possible outcomes of a study. To predict outcomes, you must have a clear idea of the problem that you are studying and what you hope to achieve through the study. Therefore, the research hypothesis is also dependent on the research problem and the objective. With this, I conclude how to frame the research objective and its importance. Let us move to yet another important aspect of research methodology. Till then, thank you. Let us meet.